The Cape Crusader combines with chaos. This is your look at the new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Earth-1 Batman. Crashing into our world from the dark multiverse's Earth-1 comes a nightmarish fusion of the only two beings capable of taking on the Man of Steel, Doomsday and Batman. The Devastator is an all-powerful creature in which the unstoppable might of Doomsday is combined with the unmatched intelligence of Batman. Before we check out the closer details on this Devastator, the first thing we're going to do is figure out how tall the figure stands. I'm sure it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways. This one is quite a bit bigger and bulkier than some of the other Batman figures that McFarlane Toys have released in the past. By the way, also, I'd like to send a big thank you to the folks over at McFarlane Toys who took the time and provided the sample of Devastator that we're having a look at in this review. Batman from Earth-1 stands at 8.4 inches. Yeah, he's a big boy. And we're going to switch that to centimeters. The figure stands 21.5 or 21.5 centimeters tall. For some size comparisons, we can bring in some of the other Batman figures we've had a look at. Just recently, we had a look at the Batman from Earth-44. I felt, unfortunately, omitting the negative aspect of things, calling him just Batman Earth-44, but they're actually from a negative universe. So that same place where you would find all of us just sporting evil goatees. I think that's from the same place. And also for other comparisons, we can bring in the original Batman, because I have done that in the past. You can sort of, well, very easily see how much bigger and bulkier Earth-1 is Batman versus the other two that we've looked at before. Looking at the accessories that come included with the figure, the first thing we'll have a look at is the trading card. Seems to always be the best place to start these reviews. A horrific amalgamation of Doomsday and Batman mixed together to give us the Earth-1 Batman. Just when you thought Doomsday wasn't dangerous enough, you give him the intellect of the Cape Crusader. Yeah, good luck dealing with that. On the back of the card, tells you the stats. The source material is from Dark Knight's Metal, Comics 2017. It says real name Bruce Wayne, but there's very little of Bruce Wayne left underneath the hide of this creature. He stands towering at 8 feet, 10 inches, and if you could believe it, 915 pounds. Yeah. Good luck dealing with that. To come also include with the figure, the same thing we get with all of these DC Multiverse figures, you do get yourself a display stand. They don't change too much to this, nor do I feel like they have to anyways, for displaying the figure for yourself. I mean, really, he stands fine on his own. But if you want to get a little bit more clever with the way that you display him, you may definitely want to make use of this. You've got the DC logo down below, a singular peg right there. And like I said, it will peg on the underside of his feet. Moving along, put that to the side. Let's pick up the figure. And yes, when you pick it up, there is a good substantial difference between picking up this figure and the ones that we had looked at before. Quite substantial is the Batman from Earth-1. You can see a very nicely detailed figure all around. I mean, I could spend a lot of time talking about the things I like about this figure, but why don't we start first with his face? The interesting thing about it is it definitely reads both as Doomsday and Batman. Yes, you would say it would be a bit of a cheat to just simply add ears to it and make any character resemble more Batman. But that's what they've done basically here with Doomsday, taking the traditional sense of what Doomsday is, and by simply incorporating like these bone ears that jet out the top of his head. A really stellar looking sculpt. I hope the camera is doing proper justice to it. It's all done in a very dark granite gray with all this nice texturing on the surface. I do like the touches of adding the glowing eyes. They've simply just airbrushed past the point of the eyes and added it around the outer area too. And that gives you this real effective look like it's actually glowing. The teeth are also painted in there as well in the cream color with nice shooting at bones at the bottom of his lip. And as you can see, it would just open up his mouth. The mouth does open. And while unfortunately there is no paint on the interior, I would have to remember if Batman from Earth-1 actually had a painted tongue or if his tongue was gray. If it was gray, mission accomplished. The color stays consistent. I don't mind the fact that there is no interior paint for the mouth because the fact that the mouth does even open and close in the first place is something I really like a lot. I mean, this figure would have been successful anyways, even if it didn't have the means to open and close its mouth. But the fact that it does adds a little extra cool factor to this particular figure. Of course, you've got all these jetted out bones sticking out, these spikes sticking out from its shoulders. It does also a nice little job of breaking up the otherwise coloring of this gray. It's across everything, surface to surface, it's all gray. But then you've got these dark, kind of bluish black spikes sticking out both on its shoulders, both on its forearms, and both sticking out also in its hands. Just adds a little extra color. Not to say that the figure couldn't have been successful if it didn't have all the extra color. I mean, obviously it's basing it from comic source material where the design of the character has the darker colors. But it does add a lot of extra stuff, just a lot of extra contrast of colors by just adding the dark gray. So it's not just all this color all the way around. I like the tattered rags that they've got across its shoulders, across its arm here. In fact, actually, let me just spin the figure around so you can see on the back there as well. Also has these little tattered rags too. They're sculpted to the torso. They're not things that you can move. Neither can you move them on the arm. But they're just also these little touches of detail that I really like on this particular figure. Very much do I get Hulk vibes when I'm checking out this sculpting on the figure. Of course, more so in the fact that it's got the ripped legs here, which, as you can see, rips in varying degrees of damage. You have a lot more of it, seems, on the side here. What they actually did do, this piece right here, drawing your attention to the lower crotch area of Batman, this is all sculpted, while this is just sculpt on top of the legs. So it does give you a little bit of additional position and movability when it comes to moving those legs. I do like that the parts of the rags here, the torn bottoms of its pants, stick out a little bit further. Not only does it allow a little bit more freedom when it comes to moving its legs, but I like that it also just sticks up a little bit. It adds just a little of extra depth going for it. Kind of like this as well, the little part of the rag, the little part of the cloth that's ripped and torn down. You got to believe it would be all up here, and this is just what's left of it, along with the arms and the top of the torso, just like right here. The hands are really sized, big sized hands, big oven mitts that you would just imagine would be grabbing onto anything and ripping it to shreds. It doesn't also help the fact that it's got all these bones protruding out from its knuckles of various sizes. Now, these are softer plastic, so you don't have to worry about those breaking. In fact, actually, all the things that are sticking out from Doom's Batman actually is a softer plastic, even like right at the top shoulder areas here as well. A little bit further down, of course, you got that continued trend happening here. Nice the way that they hid the leg articulation, at least not so much on this side, but on this side right here. By having this overlapping, you don't see that there's a leg joint until you start really rotating it. He has big, giant feet. Doesn't really have a whole lot of paint on the underside. However, there's still a fair bit going on along the top. Big, gnarly nails sticking on the ends of those toes. I'd hate to have to go in there and clean those up. Nice fur that you've also got sticking out from the side. I'm assuming it's fur, although it probably is just more spike protrusions sticking out the sides of its feet. Just a lot of cool stuff going on here. I could spend a lot of time, again, just looking at this. This probably could be one of my favorite figures, although I just finished saying that when we had a look at the -44 Batman. But they continue when it comes to these figure releases, really impress me. I mean, obviously, I would like traditional old-fashioned me would like the idea of McFarlane releasing a classics line of these figures, where we can see what he would have done with just a traditional Doomsday. This is, of course, pulling it from something a little bit more current, the Dark Knight's Metal. So, of course, he's pulling it from the character design. But, I mean, wouldn't you love this to see, based on this and this alone, what McFarlane's team could actually do with just a traditional Doomsday? I've said this actually when we had a look at the Joker in the past. The Jokers are good, and don't get me wrong, I like White Knight Joker, but I'd love to see what McFarlane could do just with a traditional classic Joker. Based on what I'm sort of seeing here with his version of Earth-1 Batman, I would certainly love to see what he could do with just a regular released Doomsday, because I think that would be pretty cool. Looking at the figure's articulation, of course, we've already discussed its mouth, but we can talk a little bit about that again. Oh, I love the fact it does have an open and closed mouth. But the head does rotate all the way around. It sits on a ball joint. Because of that, not only do you get the freedom of having the head rotate all the way around, but it hinges up, it hinges down, and somewhat, just a little bit, you can also rock that head back and forth like this. The upper torso is on a ball joint, so you can rotate that all the way around. In addition to that, it also has a secondary ball joint just at the base of the abdomen. And because this area of his pants or costume sticks out a little bit, again, it hides the fact that there's a joint working behind the scenes underneath all that. Clever the way that he did that. As for the arms do have that socket joint that we've seen in the past. Sort of hides the joint that basically has the arm sticking into the torso. And it basically just is a cup that covers over top of it. In this case, it doesn't give much more to the posability of I want to keep saying Doomsday, but of Batman. But at least it hides that joint, so you don't really see it. The hand rotates all the way around, or the arm rotates all the way around. It hinges out. It doesn't hinge out much, though. I've noticed on both sides, you don't get, well, I want to say you only get maybe about a 60-degree angle bend, and that's really about it. The arms do have just a hinge joint right at the top here, and sort of allows that arm to rotate technically all the way around as well. It has no bicep swivel or anything like that, just a straight elbow bend that also allows a swivel joint there happening as well. Now, the hands are interesting enough because there's a hinge joint. You can see sort of like the peg working right there. This allows the hands to hinge up like this and hinge down, but also you can rotate them all the way around. Just look at the size of those hands. Just imagine what that would do to anybody getting a grip of them. The legs split out quite comfortably. I like, again, how the way that overlaps everything. The legs go forward, the legs go back. It has a swivel on the top cut of the thigh, basically where it's attached to the joint. It does have a hinge on the knee right there. And then it also has a secondary hinge at the foot, so the foot can also hinge forward. The only thing about it, though, is the way that they've arched the toes. They've got a joint, well, they've pinned the feet like this, so it allows the feet to bend. I almost feel like the feet bend too high up. I feel like the joint probably should have been right here, but the downside to moving it where I would have put it is it does sacrifice some of the articulation right here. The way that they've hinged it, they haven't cut it straight across. Instead, they've cut in and up again, and I don't think you could have pulled that off by having it lower down. So I guess that's probably why they had to hinge the toe joint as far back as what they actually did. Even though technically this isn't the first big figure that McFarlane Toys has released under the banner of the DC Multiverse, we sort of have gotten that already with the Hellbat suits. This is by far my favorite of the bunch. I'm surprised actually that this one wasn't released as a Build-A-Figure. Judging by its size, its proportions, and the fact it would have worked well as a Build-A-Figure, he could have easily been released as individual pieces, packed with the DC Multiverse figures as something that you could build later on. Instead of that, we're actually treated and spoiled early by getting this guy as a full standalone release. And what a great looking figure it is. While most of its color is muted in dark grays and that kind of off-gray color for the rest of his body, he still comes together quite nicely. And boy, what a great sculpt on both the head as well as the rest of his body elements. The torsos, the limbs are big and bulky. And of course, he has all those horns and spikes sticking out from his skin. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on here with Batman from Earth-1. And again, I kind of hope in a way that McFarlane Toys will give us sort of a side DC Multiverse line, classics line, if you will. Because based on what I'm seeing here with Earth-1 Batman, I would love to really see what he could do with just a standalone Doomsday. In the meantime, though, let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of Earth-1 Batman. I made a point of actually making sure I put negative in there, like I didn't do, unfortunately, with Earth-44 Batman, which we just recently had a look at. Loving, by the way, these DC Dark Metals, stuff that they're churning out right now in the DC Multiverse line. This is 2 in, and of course I'm hoping to pick up the rest of these. I'm really liking, again, the designs of these, as the fact that they're the Cape Crusader, all presented in completely different designs. A big thank you again to the folks over at McFarlane Toys who provide the sample that we had a look at here of Earth-1 Batman. Let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of the figure. And of course, if you are new to the channel, liking the content you're seeing, consider the idea of hitting that subscribe button down below, turning the bell notification on, and keeping your peepers peeled, because there are going to be definitely more McFarlane Toy reviews coming soon to this channel. So again, keep your peepers peeled for those. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.